What is going on with my hair today? Hello. Hi everyone, Medea and Safi here, welcoming you to another video here on my YouTube channel, where I teach you all about English language. And you, my friend, you have the best seat in the house for an up-close and personal experience. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. In today's video, I'm going to explain all the different tenses in English language, along with some differences and similarities they have. Make sure you'll stick around to the end, because I'll also share with you one example for each and every one of them to make it even more tangible, hopefully. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. I'm actually so excited for today's video. I have an amazing video for you today, since I'm going to teach you all of the English tenses. How many are there? 16 of them? Yes. Lots of you have been asking me for a tense review, and I say, whatever my students want, my students get. We will go through all the 16 tenses, so you will walk away from this lesson with a much better understanding of all the English tenses. Okay, so today we're learning all 16 tenses in English. I'm going to give them to you, use them yourself in your daily encounters, and practice them. I think it's best to have an overview, and then we can go more in depth into each and every one of them real quick. I know that going over 16 tenses all in one lesson may seem like a lot, and it is. This is a big lesson, but they do share a lot of characteristics. We have a present simple, I drink water. The present continuous, I am drinking water. The present perfect, all have drunk water. The present perfect continuous, I have been drinking water. And we move on to the past simple. I drank water. The past continuous, I was drinking water. Past perfect, I had drunk water. And the past perfect continuous, I had been drinking water. Now moving on to the future tenses. We have the future simple, I will drink water. The future continuous, I will be drinking water. The future perfect, I will have drunk water. And the future perfect continuous, I will have been drinking water. Next, what we have is conditionals. Conditional simple, I would drink water. The conditional continuous, I would be drinking water. The conditional perfect, I would have drunk water. And finally, a conditional perfect continuous, I would have been drinking water. You can see how many similarities there are between all of these tenses. All right, starting with the present tense. The first tense when you learn English is usually the present simple. The reason is, this tense is usually used a lot of times by native speakers in their written forms and their communications. They do use the other presents, so they are all really important. The present simple, I work on weekdays. This is used to talk about general statements, facts, and habits. The present continuous, I am working now. This is used to talk about actions that are happening right at this moment. The present perfect, I have worked downtown. We use this to talk about past events or past actions that have present results, or they continue up to now. And the present perfect continuous, I have been working for a couple of hours today. Well, that sentence is true, but I like working. This is used to talk about an action that started in the past and continues to the present. Okay, The structure of the present simple, like its name suggests, is fairly simple. I study. We eat. They read. We have the subject plus the base form of the verb, except for the third person singular. She works. He reads. It drops. Another exception is the verb be. To be has its own forms in the present simple. I am. You are. He or she or it is. She, he, it is. We are. They are. We use the present simple to talk about general statements, facts, and habits. Events like plane and train times. We also use it for events like plane and train times, basically anything that is a schedule. Here are some examples. I am a woman. My name is Medea. This is a general statement of fact. Now, general statement of fact. Jack plays tennis on weekends or weekends. The train leaves at 7 a.m. That is a scheduled event in the future. That's when we use the simple present. And Jack plays tennis on the weekend is a habit that Jack has. Let's move on to the present continuous. We use the present continuous to talk about things that are happening at the moment. Be careful, because in general, there is an exception. You can't use state verbs, words like hate, love, want. There is an exception there, and I will show it to you. Structure of present continuous is subject plus be plus verb plus ing. Right, ing form. You can use that in these examples. I am teaching English. They are baking cookies. We are watching TV. We can also use present continuous to talk about things that we think is temporary. Don lives in Vancouver. Don is living in Vancouver. In the first sentence, I use simple present because I think that this state is more or less permanent. But in the second sentence, I use the present continuous because I think this situation might be temporary, meaning it's going to end soon. He is living in Vancouver. He is living in Vancouver now, but I don't know what might happen in a few days or months. Perhaps he's studying there or he is working there for a short time now. You will hear native speakers use state verbs in the present continuous form or to show this meaning. I am loving my YouTube channel right now. That's a fact, but I can use present continuous for it. I'm not meant to use it, but it means right now or it is a general trend. I'm hating that song so much right now. I'm not supposed to use ing form for hate, but because I'm referring to a trend, I used it. For some reason right now, I don't enjoy that song. And that is temporary. So when you hear a teacher says, never use state verbs in the present continuous form, take that with a pinch of salt. We also use present continuous tense when we are planning to do something in the future, and when it involves another person or another business. Let me show you one example. I am having my haircut on Friday. Carmen is meeting her parents on the weekend. They are plans, but they depend on someone else. Let's take a look at some examples. Sherry is studying business. This is a temporary situation happening now. We are meeting a friend on Monday. These are arrangements involving somebody else. We are driving home. We are doing this right now at this moment. It is snowing, for example. Let's move on to the present perfect. The structure of present perfect is subject plus have or has plus PP. PP is past participle or the third part of the verb. There are three main ways that we use the present perfect in English. And those main ways are: for things that started in the past and continue to present, it's very important to remember that they are unfinished when we talk. We often mention how long they've been going or when they started. For example, I have lived in the UK, or she has been in school since 2020. I have been married for 2 months. The second way that we use the present perfect is to talk about your experiences up to present. When we do this, we don't talk about exactly when something happened. We are just generally telling somebody about our life experiences. For example, she has been to Canada 3 times. We have met the ABC band. ABC could be a name for a real band, or you're just saying some sort of band. I have read all of the Shakespeare's books. I wish. Finally, we also use the present perfect to talk about past events and actions that have consequences in the present. For example, I've eaten breakfast, so I'm not hungry. Or she has lost his keys, so she is going to be late for work. Let's move on to the last one of the present forms. Present perfect continuous. We use the present perfect continuous to talk about something that started in the past and continues to present. It might sound very similar to the present perfect, but there are a few key differences. One huge difference is the structure we use. The structure is subject plus have or has plus been plus verb plus ing. I have been eating pizza. As we discussed before, with the present perfect continuous, we often use it to talk about things that we have been doing uninterrupted and that haven't finished. We use this tense to emphasize how long something has been happening. For example, I've been watching that TV show for a few days now, and emphasizing how long I have been watching the TV show. Or she has been replying to emails for 1 hour already. We use it to talk about things that have been done recently or lately. For example, it's been snowing, or I've been practicing my speaking skills a lot recently. Remember, we generally don't use the present perfect continuous to talk about states. We wouldn't say, I have been belonging to a band for a long time. We can say, or you can say, I have belonged to a band for a long time. Some of the examples are, I've been trying to call you all day. Or, he hasn't been feeling very well lately. Okay, we made it through the present perfect tenses. Let's move on now to the past tenses. We'll have a quick overview and then we'll go into more detail. We have the past simple. I worked downtown last summer. This talks about the past, finished actions. We have the past continuous. I was working at 2 p.m. yesterday. This describes a continuing action at some point in the past, and sometimes it can get interrupted by simple past. For example, I was having dinner when the phone rang. We have the past perfect. I had worked there for 2 years before I moved on. This is used to describe past actions that happened before another past action or time. And we have the past perfect continuous. I have been working there for 2 years before I finally got my promotion. Very similar to the previous one, right? But we use the past perfect continuous to talk about past actions that continue to some point in the past. Let's go back and start with the past simple. This one is nice and easy. It's the second most common use people use before the present moment. These must be finished actions, and we often say when they happened, although that's not always. The structure is the subject plus regular verb, ed. However, lots and lots of verbs are irregular. And example, I ate dinner at 10 p.m. last night. Or, Rose went to bed early. They are both irregular verbs because we change the whole form of the verb into something else. Another example, my friend bought me flowers for my birthday. Okay, let's move on to the past continuous. The structure of past continuous is subject plus was or were plus verb plus ing. We can use this tense to talk about actions or states. It's to say what was happening in the past. For example, John was teaching online at 7 p.m. last night. We can also use it to give background information about some things. For example, my neighbor was speaking to me while I was trying to walk my dog. Or, it was snowing when I went outside. We also use this tense to say that an ongoing action was interrupted by another action, and you show that other action with simple past most of the time. In this case, it is usually paired with another clause in the past simple. We were eating dinner when he arrived. We were eating dinner over this long period of time, something happened, and that's he arrived right then. Or They were chatting about the movie when the phone rang. Let's move on to past perfect. The past perfect tense is used to talk about events that happened before another event for up to a certain time in the past. Again, it is often used with the past simple. The structure is subject plus had plus past participle. When I arrived at the bus stop, the bus had already left. She had worked at a company for 5 years before it closed down. Or we had already eaten dinner, so we weren't hungry. And finally, let's discuss the past perfect continuous. The structure is subject plus had plus been plus verb ing. Now the past perfect and the past perfect continuous can be used interchangeably, no difference in overall meaning. Let's take a look at two sentences. There is no real difference in their overall meanings with one another. I had worked there for 5 years when the company closed. I had been working there for 5 years when the company closed. However, you should use the continuous form in these two situations. If you're talking about an action in the past which continued up to a certain time and continued after it, or if you're talking about a repeated action that happened in the past. They had been working for hours before they decided that they needed to take a break. Or the orchestra had been practicing for months before the concert. If you're still here, you're doing a really, really good job. Let's have a quick overview of the future tenses. They're used to talk about events after the present moment. We have the future simple, I will stay here in the summer. This is used to talk about events or actions that we believe will happen in the future. We are nearly certain. Future continuous. I will be working at 2 o'clock tomorrow. We use this for a moment in the future. We have a future perfect. I will have worked there for 2 years on Sunday. We use this to talk about an event or an action that is planned or expected to happen before a certain time in the future. And we have the future perfect continuous. I will have been working there for 2 years. It's an action that will continue after a certain point in the future. Now let's take a look at each one of them individually. Future simple. It's the easiest way to talk about the future. The structure is subject plus base form plus the verb. We can use this to talk about things that we think will happen in the future. I think it will rain tomorrow. We can also use this to make offers or promises. I'll help you carry the groceries or groceries. She will call you tomorrow. And finally, we can use it to talk about facts in the future. It will be our first wedding anniversary next year. Or, my grandma will be 85 years old soon. Now let's move on to the future continuous. The structure is subject plus will plus be plus verb plus ing. This tense is used to talk about actions that will be in progress at a certain point in time. These actions will start and end in the future, but we don't know when. I will be eating dinner at 8 p.m. tomorrow. So it's an action that will be carried out over a period of time, not simply in an instant. I'll be playing tennis tomorrow. This would be considerable amount of time, maybe 30 minutes to an hour or even more, not just a second. The future perfect. We use the future perfect to talk about actions or states that will be completed before a certain point of time, and we often use time clauses with a future perfect, like when I'm older. The structure is subject, will have plus verb. Some examples. I will have retired by the time I'm 65. We're using by that time to show that final point, or you will have finished the book before the semester starts. Or come over at 9 p.m. My guests will have arrived by then. Finally, we have future perfect continuous. This tense describes actions that will be continuing. You use this tense when thinking about the duration of an action to a certain point in time. The structure is subject plus will have been plus verb plus ing. She will have been living in India for 3 months in June. Or, when I retire next month, I will have been working here for 3 years. Like most of the continuous tenses, we don't usually use state verbs. So we don't usually use the state verbs with ing. It should be will plus have plus PP, or past participle. I will have had my car for 5 years this Christmas, rather than I will have been having my car. You also can't use the future perfect continuous to talk about finished actions. You just have to use the future perfect instead. Finally, let's get into the conditionals. And I'm going to go over them just briefly today. We use this one to talk about hypothetical situations or events that depend on another event. Let's have a brief overview. We have a conditional simple, I would work abroad if I could. We use this to talk about hypothetical actions in the present. We have the conditional continuous. I would be working abroad now if I wasn't stuck here. We use this to talk about hypothetical continuous actions in the present. We have the conditional perfect. I would have worked abroad last year, but I didn't get my visa. We use this to talk about hypothetical actions in the past, and we have a conditional perfect continuous. I would have been working here for longer if I had got my visa earlier. We use this to talk about actions that started in the past and continued its form with the subject plus would plus the base form of the verb and continued. I would travel in first class. She would walk to work. These phrases don't really have a lot of meanings on their own, so they are usually coupled with another idea. I would have traveled in first class if I had more money. Or she would walk to work if she lived closer. Would can be replaced with could, should, or might, but this does change the meaning. He could get a pet if he has enough space. If you want it done, you should see a doctor, or if you want it, you should see a doctor. I might go to the beach tomorrow. Let's take a look at conditional continuous. When we use the conditional continuous, we put the focus on the duration of the hypothetical action to talk about a longer action. When we want to emphasize, we want people to focus on how long an action would take. The structure is subject plus would plus be plus verb plus ing. It expresses an unfinished or continuing hypothetical action. This is an action which is the probable result of an unreal condition. I would be writing emails if I was at work, but I'm not at work. And you can use could, should, and might again to change the meaning. You should be unpacking the groceries I just bought. Or I could be sitting on a beach in Jamaica right now. Let's take a quick look at the conditional perfect. When we want to change the past, we use the conditional perfect. Of course, we can't really change the past, so this is hypothetical. We talk about what we would have done. The structure is subject plus would have plus PP, or past participle. I would have told them not to come. I would have bought that house. She would have cooked a big meal, but she didn't know you were coming. Again, you can replace it with, I could have bought that house, but I didn't. You can replace it with could. You should have told me. We could have gone if we've known about it. They might have said, but I can't remember. Finally, the last tense that brings us to 16. It is the conditional perfect continuous. We use it to talk about the hypothetical results of an action that started in the past. We use the continuous tense to focus on the duration of conditional tense. Just as a brief overview, the structure is subject plus would have been plus verb plus ing. I would have been wearing my red dress if I'd washed it, or if I had washed it. I would have been working in Dubai if you hadn't taken the job in London. Again, you can use it with should and might. You should have been feeling better yesterday. He could have been living in London if she had taken that language course at university. All right, that is it for today's lesson. I can't believe we just covered 16 tenses, and I'm so excited about it. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulder. It was amazing to share it with you guys too. You know you can connect with me in all my social medias. I have my Instagram and Facebook, and I will be looking at your comments on my channel where I'm deciding to share some more vlogs about my life. And I promise every video will be full listening practice. And of course, there will be some vocabulary in there too. Once again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and send this video to another person who you think might like it. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I see you guys later.